It'd be just my luck that when I decide to do this video outside, the gardeners are here. So we're doing this in my wife's office. What are we talking about today? I wanted to talk about AI and AI sample packs. Now, I don't have an issue with AI sample packs, so I don't want you to think that I'm saying that it's all bad. My issue is the fact that almost every single AI sample pack is sourced from pre-recorded production, which means that it's content from someone else. That means that the rights for the original music belongs to something else. You can circumnavigate that as long as you have an interpolation of the sample. Let's go back and think about this again. Copyright law states that if you sample a record, you have to pay the copyright owner. If you replay the sample and enough change happens in the sample for it to be considered its own actual composition, then you don't have to worry about the sample laws. But that's a whole gray area. This is why you've seen in the past so many people make something that sounds like something else, but you can't really place it, but it sounds similar, but they can't sue because you cannot copyright a chord progression. If they could do that, then you wouldn't hear so many records with the exact same chord progressions. So the tricky part is understanding how much of the composition belongs to one person versus another person. Same thing when it comes to sounds. If they could copyright if they could trademark an actual sound, then all of a sudden you have a new problem. And in some cases you can. We have had people who have made certain sounds, and what they end up doing is doing licensing, where it's like this specific type of sound that's been merged this way. So let's say it's an organ with a string in the background and a very, very, very particular synth sound in the background, a lead or pad or whatever. Then it becomes like, okay, that's that person's sound because they've used it in so many different records. But before they even do that, they would have had to have looked into some way to lock that up, whether they had to trademark it some way. So if they didn't do that, they don't own that. So that's all the gray area stuff going on when it comes to the whole sample thing. My issue with AI is that the models are trained on pre-recorded music. It's sampling other people's music and making its interpolation, but it's very accurate. Case in point, I made a record recently, and when I heard the sample, because I'm a sample-based producer, I start with samples and I add things around the samples. When I heard the record for the first time, the first thing that came to mind was, I've heard this before. Where have I heard this before? I know I've heard this before somewhere. And I just kept listening to it. And it didn't take long. I mean, this is the process going on in my head, but like the whole process took a few seconds. So, I realized what it was, and see if you could figure it out. This is the original sample in the background. This is what I made. And this is what I felt it sounded like. Now, if you guessed Transformers G1, the first generation Transformers TV series from the 80s, late 70s, 80s, yeah, that's what it sounds like. And I think what happened was that the person put a prompt in, and the AI was told to make this music that sounds like this. And what the AI did was, it just said, I'm gonna go do that. and that's the thing. Like, it's not that it's not free thinking to some degree. It's more so that when it comes to certain types of creativity, it's good and bad at it. It's good at mimicking things. It's bad at doing its own thing. And in this scenario, it just literally, I personally felt that it copied this. And I made the beat and I put it out online just for people to hear. I made the beat mainly because I wanted to see if anyone else would notice that this record sounds like the Transformers series. And if that's the case, that's a problem. And the reason why it's a problem, and mind you, only one person noticed that it sounded like that. He wrote me on the Facebook chat and asked a question about it. And I said, maybe it is. And the problem with that is if the model is copying copyrighted material to that degree, how long till there's a lawsuit because this basically sounds like this? And mind you, the Transformers theme is a huge, huge record. And the other side of this is because of age. I mean, I know we all don't like to talk about age, but I'm 46 years old. And the reality is that I've been around long enough to hear these records when they were first made. And a lot of the younger producers who may be putting these sample packs together may not have heard these records, or they only know their version of the Transformers. Just using Transformers as an example. Maybe they've only heard their version of the Transformers from their generation. I mean, there's been like 10 different versions of the Transformers, if not probably more at this point, because we're not going to discuss the original pre-G1 Japanese animation originals, because Transformers is actually a Japanese cartoon, not an American cartoon. A lot of people don't know that. But Hasbro licensed it from the company, I'm sorry, Mattel or Hasbro, probably both, licensed it from the company overseas. So there's tons of variations of this series, and the one we all know from my age when I was a kid was the G1 version, and then the movie, and then on and on and so on. Some people only know Transformers Prime. Some people only know these other versions that have come out after, where the theme song sounds completely different from this. So now, my concern is with sample pack makers using AI as their option and not making adjustments to it. Now you're setting people up to buy your samples and then get lawsuits. And that is that is a very plausible thing, because as you could hear, you hear the sample, you hear my version, you hear the Transformers theme song, they're all sounding the same. And just so you know, I'm not actually licensing that record. I am not selling that record, and I'm not sending it out for placements. I literally made it as an exercise in making the beat, and I put it on social media for people to hear. And the main point of it was to see if anybody noticed that it sounds like that. Now, only one person did, like I said before. However, if I was to send this to a major artist and they used it and it got big, here comes Mattel and Hasbro like, hey, you guys need to pay me because that's my stuff. And that's the gray area. That's the thing we need to think about. Recently, there was a court hearing about the copyright laws when it comes to AI, and the government has stated that the only way that an AI sample can be considered a copyrightable material is if a significant portion of it has human interaction. So you basically have to change it. You have to get yourself involved with the sample. So what does that mean? It means that as a person who's using any kind of AI sample material, you can't just loop it. You can't just loop it and then say, I'm going to send it off. I'm going to register it in my name, and I'm going to copyright this in my name and the artist I'm working with. Don't do that, because that can cause all sorts of legal ramifications later on, especially if the AI loop sounds significantly like something else. Don't do that. It's a problem because it's creating more music that's not authentic. You need authenticity. You need to have your own spin. When you used to listen to all these producers that you guys all came up and loved, even the younger producers that are really good at what they're doing, they have their own sound. I mean, you didn't even need producer tags back in the day. You just knew when you heard somebody, this is who that was. Oh, that's RZA. Wow. Oh, that's Primo. Oh, that's the Alchemist. Because you can confuse Primo, the Alchemist, and Havoc real easy if you're not paying attention. But they all sound different. They all have the thing that makes them, oh, that's Primo, that's The Alchemist, and that's Havoc. That's Just Blaze, that's Kanye West. A lot of people were confusing Just Blaze and Kanye West, and I couldn't figure out how because they don't sound the same. They have some similarities, but they don't sound the same. So what you want to do with AI samples is find a way to make it authentic. How do you do that? For starters, switch it up. Listen to the sample that you're playing from Suno or Udio or whichever one of the AI things you're using to produce a sample. Listen to it, modify it, add some sounds to it, play some things on top of it, chop it up and rearrange the stuff. Don't just use the loop. I think for the longest, we've gotten into this habit, and I'm saying we, I'm not including myself because I really don't do it that often, but we as the producer community has gotten into this habit of just taking a loop, adding some drums, add some bass, and then sending it on. Don't do that because everyone can hear it. Everyone can tell that that's what's been done. I've gone into the Akai MPC expansion libraries that I've gotten from Akai, and most of it is unusable because people just used it as a loop. So I can reuse it, but I have to chop it up. But if I use it as a loop and sent it off, now, here comes some major artist saying that I sampled their stuff, but I didn't. I actually went and used the expansion pack and it had a loop in it, and I just looped it and added my own feel to it. Do you see the problem? So it's important that you make the sound your own. If you don't do that, it's not going to work. And that's my big pitch about all of this at this point. I'm not opposed to sample packs at all. I think that sample packs are great. They're great starting points. They're great starting points. And I think that's the real purpose of a sample pack. It's not for you to just take the loop and just send it on its way. Sprinkle some stuff on and send it on its way. That's not what sample packs are for. Sample packs help you to be creative. They help you to try new things. And there's nothing wrong with trying new things. Add to it. Add layers to it. Chop it up. Flip it. Change the tune of it. Make it sound like something else. Bring it to life. That's what you need to do. Take the thing that has no soul and give it soul. Do that. If you do that, I guarantee you can create your own sound, your own feel, your own vibe out of anything. Check the rights, read the information, make sure that you're not getting yourself into a jam if you use it a certain way. Use it within the specs of what the original creator anticipated you to use it for. And that way you keep yourself out of trouble. And then after you do that, then add to it. Change it up, switch it up, make it sound different, make it have a different feel, give it a vibe that is you. That's what's important. So sample packs from AI, no problems with them. But make sure that what you're sampling isn't just a copy of something that's original, that is already registered, that is extremely popular, because lawsuits are not fun. And no matter how much you want to tell yourself that you could find a way to hide things, lawsuits are not fun. Don't do that to yourself. Be positive, be creative, supportive, and push forward with everything you're doing with amazing intention. Like, share, and subscribe. Catch you guys next time.